Man, tough week, huh? This whole thing with Liam Payne, I don't know, it's hit a lot of us hard. Especially those of us who, grew up with One Direction, like, they were part of the soundtrack to our lives.
It's different, isn't it? Not just another celebrity death. It's like this shared loss, because their music, it wove its way into these really formative years for so many.
Exactly, and it's tough to process, right? So what we're going to do today is, we're going to deep dive into it carefully, respectfully, of course. We're going to look at what's out there, the information that's available, and try to make sense of this whole thing.
It's about finding the truth, or at least getting as close to it as we can without, getting lost in the speculation and rumors.
Right, exactly. Sticking to the facts, which are sadly tragic on their own. Liam, gone at 31, that fall in Buenos Aires.
Wow.
I mean, just heartbreaking. And it makes you think, right? Life, it's so fragile, even when from the outside it seems picture perfect.
And that's the thing about Liam. Even at the height of One Direction's fame, he was so open about his struggles, about the fact that, fame doesn't equal happiness. It made him relatable, human. And now, with these reports of potential substance involvement, well, he was very open about his past struggles with addiction.
It's hard not to make that connection, right?
It is. And this is where understanding the kind of pressures that come with being in the music industry, that becomes so important, the toll it takes.
It's true. And what makes it even more, poignant is that he was so open about those pressures, about his mental health. Like he was trying to show everyone, hey, it's not all sunshine and roses, even when you're living the dream, right?
Absolutely. And he was doing this while navigating this incredibly intense, almost unique kind of fandom. We're talking about an adult fan base here, people who literally grew up alongside One Direction.
Wow. Yeah, it adds a whole other layer to this, doesn't it?
It does. Because it's not just about the music, right? It's about their own youth, their own memories tied up in those songs, in that band. It's like a part of their own lives is also being mourned.
It's true. It's like they all went through this collective coming of age together, them and their fans, and now it's like, I don't know, it just makes you think about how the band themselves dealt with all of that, especially with those reports of internal conflicts,
Right. And there were reports, whispers of tensions, even alleged altercations, which sadly isn't that uncommon in bands operating under that kind of pressure. Think about it.
Yeah.
Constant touring, creative differences, the ever-present media scrutiny. It's a recipe for things to get messy.
Totally. Like a pressure cooker, right?
Yeah.
And it all goes back to that dissonance, what we see on the surface, the music videos, the awards versus the reality behind the scenes. And that brings us to, the media frenzy that always seems to surround these kinds of events.
It's inescapable, isn't it? The constant scrutiny a public figures face, especially in moments of tragedy. And Liam's passing, as awful as it is, it becomes part of a much larger conversation about how we, as a society, but particularly the media, how we handle these sensitive situations. Are we giving enough space for grieving, for privacy? It's a tough question.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, does something like this, as heartbreaking as it is, does it actually lead to real change? Like in the music industry specifically, which is notorious for chewing people up and spitting them out.
It's the question, isn't it? The million-dollar question. Are we just doomed to repeat these cycles? I don't know. There have been some positive steps, I'll say that. More open conversations about mental health, more support systems being put in place. Some agencies, they have actual teams now dedicated to this. Therapists on call, retreats for artists to kind of step away from the spotlight, decompress.
Okay, so it sounds like things are moving in the right direction at least.
They are, but it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
There's always more to do. The music industry, any high-stakes field, really, needs to constantly evolve to create a culture that supports its own, genuinely. It's not just about preventing tragedies. It's about fostering actual well-being.
That's a good point. It's about changing the whole environment, not just putting Band-Aids on the problem.
Exactly. And that takes a real shift in thinking, a commitment from everyone involved.
This whole situation, it's a lot to unpack, isn't it? It's easy to get caught up in the headlines, the gossip, all that. But what we have to remember, and I think this is the big takeaway here, is that behind every song, every music video, every public persona, there's a real person with real feelings, real struggles. It's a powerful reminder to engage with the media, with these stories, with sensitivity, and, with a good dose of human decency.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We've covered a lot today, from the specifics of Liam's passing to these broader, systemic issues like mental health in the industry, the role of the media. But if there's one thing I hope our listeners take away from this, it's this. Empathy matters. Understanding matters. Let's try to be a little kinder, a little more aware, and maybe, just maybe, we can start to shift the conversation, create a world where these kinds of tragedies become less and less frequent.
Well said. It starts with each of us.
It really does.